also demand an immediate help to evictions so families are not pushed to homelessness during the crisis.
So we have an interesting report coming out of Minnesota where Somali migrants, they're now asking for more money from the American taxpayers. They're literally demanding reparations. But when asked about it, Vice President J.D. Vance, he made it crystal clear. If there's going to be reparations, it's going to be from the Somali fraudsters to the American taxpayers. Welcome to the Immigration Report. If you want daily immigration updates without bias, with evidence, please consider subscribing. Let us get into it, starting with this video of these people demanding reparations.
Relief programs fits into our criteria of small business owners, not those who make $200,000 and above. We don't make that much amount. And we have been suffering since the crisis of ICE. We also demand an immediate help to evictions so families are not pushed to homelessness during the crisis. Our community deserves accountability. Our community deserves safety. We need also justice for those who lost their lives defending the community.
What you're looking at here is a group of Somali migrant activists that got together to make their demands known to the American taxpayers and the American government. And what they're demanding is for the government to give free money to Somali businesses and individuals that makes under $200,000. Not only are they demanding more money, but they're also demanding the government to prevent them from being evicted. So if there's someone that didn't pay their rent, or if there are people that's not paying their rent, they want the government to tell landlords that you cannot evict these people. And we have an article here that's titled, Minnesota Somalis Demand Reparations Over ICE Raids. And the article reads, it's all about scamming for Minneapolis Somalis who are now demanding that reparations be paid for ICE raids carried out during Operation Metro Surge. And the article continues to say, among the demands are free money to businesses making under $200,000, free rent, and an official apology from ICE. And here we have another demand from these activists. Take a look.
We have suffering since starting for ICE. We wanna, whoever bring over here, we wanna they pay. Only that's what I'm saying. And I'm asking our government and our state. We are taxpayers. We need pay back whatever they committed ICE. Thank you very much.
I know she's a little bit hard to understand, but what she's saying is that they've been suffering ever since the start of Operation Metro Surge. And they're demanding that they be paid back for whatever they lost, whether it's like business loss, whether it's not being able to go to work, or whatever the case may be. They're demanding that ICE pay them back for whatever they lost to our Operation Metro Surge. And Vice President J.D. Vance, he was asked about this. He was asked about reparations for these Somali migrants. And this is his response. Take a look.
A very chaotic area. You now have the leaders there now saying that they want reparations from ICE. They should be paid money. They say that the federal government must pay for what they broke. Now all of a sudden they care about money. Apparently they didn't care about it with the fraud.
Yep.
What is your response to that?
Well, my response is on behalf of the American people, would like reparations from them for allowing Somali fraudsters to steal billions of dollars from the American taxpayer that live in Minnesota. They've done nothing to cut down on that fraud. I think it's absurd for people to say, we want reparations. Reparations for what? Because we enforced the law that the American people elected us to do? Because we took people who were setting up fraudulent daycare centers and tried to get them out of this country? Because we took sex criminals out of neighborhoods and either put them in prison or sent them far away from the United States of America? We're doing the job the American people elected us to do. No one is talking about anything other than enforce the law against criminal illegal aliens in the United States of America. It's really not that hard. And it's a huge indictment of Jacob Fry and frankly, the entire far left, that they made that their cause of the day, letting violent sex offenders stay on the streets of America. The president's just not going to go for that.
Well, the irony does.
And there you go. You heard it straight from the horse's mouth. The Trump administration will not be paying reparations to these Somali migrants. And the vice president made it crystal clear. If there are going to be reparations, it's going to be from the Somali fraudsters to the American taxpayers. Because at the end of the day, the American taxpayers have been bearing the cost of everything. The money that got stolen in Minnesota that got sent to Somalia, guess who it came from? The American taxpayers. The government who stand by and let it happen. We're talking about Jacob Fry, Keith Ellison, Tim Walz. Who paid these people? The American taxpayers. When ICE went in there to clean up the city in Minneapolis and Minnesota, guess who paid for that? The American taxpayers. And now these people, they're requesting more money from the American taxpayers. So if anyone deserve money, deserve reparations, it's the American taxpayers. And the reason why these Somali migrants, they're coming out there demanding more money is because Jacob Fry and Tim Walz, they came out the other day and they demanded millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars from the government. Take a look at this reminder.
Minnesota leaders want President Trump to pay up. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry and Governor Tim Walz are now demanding federal dollars to cover what they call damage done by ICE enforcement. Listen.
We've seen at least $203 million in economic impact in just January alone. And so we're calling on the federal government to fully step up, to provide direct financial assistance to our city.
The federal government needs to pay for what they broke here. You don't get to break things and then just leave without doing something about it.
If anyone should pay for what's broken in Minneapolis and Minnesota, it's Tim Walz, Jacob Fry, and Keith Ellison, because they're the leaders who stood by and let all the fraud happen throughout the state. And when ICE went in there to clean up Minneapolis, they're the ones who told people to go out there in the streets to march to prevent ICE from doing their job, which turned into a lot of chaos. And here's Laura Trump on who should be held accountable for all the chaos that we saw in Minneapolis. Take a look.
Griff, it is pretty rich to hear that now they all of a sudden care about money. Wait a minute, where were the leaders there in Minnesota whenever billions of American taxpayer dollars were stolen because of rampant fraud within their state and their communities there? Now all of a sudden they care. And you know, if they want to look to where all of this originated, let's go back to what those individuals themselves did. They encouraged resistance and obstruction of law enforcement and law enforcement operations there in Minnesota, there in Minneapolis. That led to riots. That led to assaults. That led to destruction of property. So maybe they want to turn around and look in a mirror. And what was it all for?
So let me know in the comment section below. Do you think the Trump administration should pay reparations to these Somali migrants, or should the Tim Walz government be on the hook to pay back taxpayers for the money that got stolen in Minneapolis? Now let us move on to our next story, where Representative Ilhan Omar and another congresswoman tried to create a spectacle by showing up at an ICE detention facility, but was surprised when they showed up. And we have an article here that's titled, Representatives Ilhan Omar and Andrew Craig say Whipple building was completely empty during oversight visit. The article reads, 2 Minnesota members of Congress returned to the building at the center of the state's immigration surge after being denied access last month. The article continues to say, half an hour before they arrived, Omar and Craig said Immigration and Customs Enforcement moved detainees out, placing them in certain county jails that serve as ICE detention centers. And take a look at their response after showing up to that detention center.
It felt convenient that no one was there. They said 10 when we first got there, and 10 were gone. And then they said there were another 5. And so I circled back and I said, can we go and see the 5 that are here, because we have privacy release forms? And they said, no, we cannot permit you to go into the cell to see the detainees. And I said, well, we don't need to go into the cell. We can, put the forms, slide them in, and then we can look through the glass and see what their conditions look like. And then they oohed and ahed for a little bit, and then conveniently, as they were taking us towards the cell, someone said, there's not a single person left, and they took us into an empty cell.
People are saying Ilhan Omar is only doing this because her and her husband are being investigated for alleged fraud. But besides that, her and Andrew Craig, they showed up at this detention facility, but they should be happy. But instead of being happy, they're having a meltdown, because the claim that they always make is that the Trump administration isn't treating detainees humanely. But now, because they showed up, there weren't anyone, there weren't people packed on top of each other, as they always claim. They now have a problem with that. You just cannot win with these liberals. And that brings us to the end of today's immigration report. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Also, if you don't mind, like, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Thank you.